So right now there is a standoff with the Dakota Access Pipeline that'd like to build a giant pipeline worth $3.8 billion and the Standing Rock tribe in North Dakota. So the Standing Rock tribe says, hey, you guys are building on unceded territory of Sioux Nation, and we don't agree. We'd like to protect the water because that's sacred to us, and they're referring to the Missouri River, which the Dakota Access Pipeline would like to drill underneath. And the Dakota Access Pipeline says, well, I don't know what you're talking about. That's all private land that we bought, so we have the right to do that, and this is the safer way to go, et cetera. Now, there are some environmental interests, but the part of the story that I want to focus on today is about who's right and who's wrong about the land. And the more you dive into that, the more you realize that it is complicated and a fascinating history. So, I think that Jordan Charon at TYT Politics has done an amazing job. He's got a number of videos that lay this out. Go to youtube.com/TYT Politics to find out more. In fact, today, the New York Times quoted Jordan and his coverage in explaining to their audience what's actually happening at Standing Rock. But to the best of my ability, let me lay out the story in as simple a way as I can here. So, obviously, when the immigrants came into the country in the first place, what now we would call undocumented immigrants, settlers, etc., they immediately ran into Native American tribes. And throughout the history of America, there was a lot of conflict as that happened, both first in the East, but then later in the West. Everybody knows this part, right? And at times, the conflict would rage and there would be killings on both sides because the local tribes would think that their territory was being encroached upon, and oftentimes it most certainly was. And yet, of course, those in the East, the settlers and the American government eventually wanted to keep expanding west, so they would constantly have conflicts. And from time to time, they would settle those conflicts with treaties. Makes sense. And so there was the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1851, and in that treaty, the Native American tribes, especially the Sioux Nation, said, okay, you can have the Oregon Trail, and here's a section that you can have, and the trail that you can use, and we won't bother you there, and that's not a problem. In return, we will get this block of land here. Now, that's already their land, but you won't encroach there. That is what the treaty says. So that's back in 1851. Okay, that sounds good. Now, look, they had all of the land before, but here they're signing a treaty saying, fine, you can have that portion and you can have uninterrupted access to where you want to go. Just don't bother us, at least on this portion of the land. Now, that's a treaty signed by the United States of America, and our word should be our bond. I would hope that if you're a good person and a good American, you would think that, hey, if we sign a treaty, we mean it. Well, later in the 1860s, they had to do another treaty because, honestly, the American government and homesteaders, et cetera, kept violating the earlier treaty. And history recognizes that it was not the Sioux that were violating the treaty. It was the American government and the settlers that were. So in the 1860s, they do another addition to this treaty. And in that treaty, they explain, okay, now, look, here's the new map. Let's take a look at it. There is the Great Sioux Reservation. They could build there. They live there. No question that that is theirs in any way, shape, or form. This treaty is done in 1868. The yellow part is unceded into Indian territory, which is also theirs. It is Sioux Nation land. That is where they can hunt, and the Americans should not be going into that land. They agreed not to build there. The Sioux Nation agreed not to build there, but they own it, and they can hunt there, and the settlers are not to go into that land. That is what the treaty says. Well, now, to make a very long story a little bit shorter, between 1868 and 1944, the settlers kept encroaching on the land, violating the treaty over and over again. And from time to time, Congress would just simply now pass laws saying, nah, I don't think that's your land anymore. Now, those were not treaties. They didn't ask the Sioux, and those should not have the full force of and weight of the law because it was not agreed upon by both parties. Congress just simply went, we're just going to take it. Now, they realized that in 1944 they wanted to address that. I'll get back to that in a second. But what wound up happening is they said, okay, we're going to make your reservations much smaller. And so now let's take a look at that map. They gave them much smaller reservations out of the much larger territory, 7 of which went to Sioux Nation. And the rest of the territory, they simply gave away to homesteaders. So what are homesteaders? They are anyone who is willing to go out west. The American government would just simply give them free land. Land they didn't own, that according to the treaty was Sioux Nation land. They knew that. They broke the treaty anyway, and they just gave it to settlers who were largely white, not exclusively white. And look, some of the homesteaders, the reason they did that, the American government did that, part of the reason is they didn't want large plantations which had slavery, and this is now around the Civil War era and after the Civil War, obviously. So they wanted to spread people out and have individuals running their own farms and have a country based on that. Now that's the positive side. The negative side is they stole the land that they agreed in the treaty was Sioux Nations. So now in the 1940s, they recognized that. The US government does and goes, all right, guys, our bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to compensate you for that land because by treaty and by law, we shouldn't have taken it. So they offer financial settlements to a lot of different tribes. Some take it, some don't. Sioux Nation says, no. We don't want your money, we want our land. At the time, they were offered $108 million. Now, when they didn't take the money, it got put in a trust fund for them. Do you know how much it's worth now? $1.3 billion. Now, if you've seen the videos of the protesters or you know anything about that area, you know those are not rich folks. They could really use the $1.3 billion, as any of us could. But to this day, Sioux Nation says, no, we don't want your money. That's our land. That is unceded territory. We never ceded it to you. The treaty is still in effect. So now let me show you a video that we aired for the first time exclusively on the Young Turks. It's drone video, and I'll walk you through it as we show it to you. And so this is the pipeline being built on what the Dakota Access Pipeline Company says is private land. Hey, I bought that private land, and there's the Missouri River, and that's the drilling pad a half a mile out from the Missouri River, and that's my land because I bought it. Well, you know, the homesteaders at some point passed it on down, and at some point, this company did buy some of that land. It did eminent domain on other parts of the land the government did for them. But the Sioux Nation says, and they are right, no, according to the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868, that is unceded territory belonging to Sioux Nation. So that is why we're at the impasse that we are today, among the reasons why. So when it gets to the water, it's a little trickier because the water is actually Army Corps of Engineer land. That is a separate treaty that was, or an agreement that was settled with the Standing Rock tribe of Sioux Nation. So the Army Corps does own the water. The company does not. The private company does not own the water. That is the Missouri River. It is federal property, which then leads to the fact that we, as U.S. citizens, can decide whether they can drill under the river or not. If they can't drill under the river, then they can't do it. And the Army Corps of Engineers is part of the federal government. The federal government is us. We are the guys who get to decide, hey, are we going to honor that treaty with Sioux Nation? That was supposed to be our word. That was supposed to be our bond. Who are we as Americans? Are we the people who say one thing and do another? Are we the people who steal from others and never return their land to them? Or are we decent, honorable people who are going to actually have our bond mean something? Now, look, if you say, I saw that map, we can't possibly give back a giant chunk of South Dakota, North Dakota, among other states, back to the Sioux and call it Sioux Nation. I understand that. You can say, hey, you know what, the Dakota Access Pipeline, they spent all this money already. We can't just stop the construction and say, hey, sad day for you. But look, those are not your only options. One option is to say, hey, we're going to come to a fair agreement with Sioux Nation. And some of that agreement, yes, might involve money, but some of it might involve land. And if this is part of the land they really care about, maybe this is part of the land that goes back to Sioux Nation that has always had it and should have had it all along. And for the company, look, we do eminent domain all the time to help companies where the government comes in and says, nope, we're going to take this land so we can build something on it, and you don't have a choice, we're just going to give you a fair market value. Can we not also do eminent domain to help people that were betrayed, a trust that was broken, a people that have been standing there for a long time, to help them? The answer is, of course we can, and it's not just to help them, it's because it's the right thing to do, and it's the law. So we can compensate the company and have that be fair as well, and still not build a pipeline. Because when you look at that drilling pad sitting right there by the Missouri River, that is Sioux Nation. Look, from Sitting Bull to Standing Rock, these guys have not moved. And they have every right to insist on positions that are accurate and legal. They have every right to insist on land that is theirs. Now, I don't know that they get all of that land back, but I do know now a new fight has begun. And on this ground, they will stand as they always do. And they will say, not this time. So it's up to the rest of us to figure out where we stand. Do you stand with people who have been the victims of gross injustice for centuries? Or do you stand on the side of their oppressors? Do you stand on the side of your word, your bond, and the law? Or do you stand on the side of lawbreakers who don't care about the rule of law? That's our choice to make, because that water, the Missouri River, is ours. The Standing Rock tribe is trying to help us protect it. I think it's fair of them to ask us to now finally stand with them. Sioux Nation is very proud, and deservedly so. Those are the first Americans, and I think it's time for the rest of us, the other Americans, to join them in their fight and stand strong with them. The Young Turks isn't just us, it's also you guys. You make this show possible, and we want to thank you for it, and we want to grow together. We want to be too strong. tytnetwork.com/join. Let's do it.